The day Sarah went to the airport to pick up her first love, Mark, I signed the divorce papers at home. She offered to give me more time to think, but I shook my head and said there was no need. Back then, she married me only because Mark got married, and she had no other options. I was stable and respectable enough, so I caught her eye. I've held this position for years. Now that her real love is back, it's time for me to step down. We met again at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. I was holding the new red marriage certificate when she blocked my path. Her eyes were red, her voice hoarse, asking me, "What does she have that I don't, to make you love her enough to marry her?" I found out Mark was back in a strange way. I was at the beach, and I bumped into my brother-in-law, Ryan, writing something in the sand. He was on a video call on his phone, drawing a big heart with Sarah and his friends' names inside. "Mark, hurry back," he laughed, tapping the empty space with a stick. "This spot is for you." "I know, I just landed," said the guy on the other end, his voice warm and cheerful. "Your sister is already here to pick me up." Suddenly, I understood why Sarah had planned her schedule so early and told me she had a meeting this morning. "All right, see you tonight," came the man's voice again, unable to hide a smile. Ryan ended the call and noticed me smiling behind him. The ocean slowly erased Sarah's name from the sand. I ruffled Ryan's hair and asked, "Are you having dinner with Mark tonight?" He nodded, looking like he wanted to say more, but didn't. We said our goodbyes, and I glanced at the heart with my name missing. Even before comparing the two of us, I knew I couldn't match up to Mark. Even though Mark's been married a while, Sarah's friends always saw him as their brother-in-law. They'd call me David, as if I was just a business partner, polite and respectful, but nothing more. It wasn't until I heard them answer Mark's call that I realized they could laugh and joke with guys too. I started to see the complete picture. They'd seen what real love, like Mark's, looked like, making Sarah's choice clear. In her youth, Sarah loved with a lot of passion. They'd float over cityscapes in hot air balloons, hug on snowy mountain peaks at sunrise, and kiss at the top of Ferris wheels. It felt timeless and full of promise. But that passionate teenage love ended when Mark went abroad and found someone new. Their fireworks fizzled out, leaving me and Sarah to pick up the pieces. Compared to Mark, I'm not as lively or interesting. Sarah, too, has become more reserved. Our days drifted by, steady but bland. I'd forget where I put things, and she'd label them while seated next to me. There's a soft dent from the pen as the ink dries on the label. She'd tilt her head, smiling. "This way, you won't lose them." In those moments, she seemed like a normal wife who loved her husband. When she invited me as her +1 to an alumni event, someone asked if we wanted to see the old campus building where Mark's photos still hung. Her grip on my arm tightened slightly. She looked at me and said, "Let's not, or it might bring back memories." It was as if she meant to say, "I won't think of Mark. Otherwise, I'll long for him." On our way back, I called Sarah. My finger paused before hitting call, but I did it anyway. I felt she answered slower than usual. "What's up, David?" she asked, amidst what sounded like airport noise. I composed myself. "Still in your meeting?" Her voice was cool and low. Nothing seemed amiss unless you knew she was with Mark right then. For a second, I was lost. Sarah had been flawless, but beneath that, it had been indifferent. "I'll be home late tonight," she said, snapping me back to reality. For some reason, I blurted, "Are you going to a get-together?" It was her turn to stay silent. I usually never questioned her plans. "With friends," she finally said. "All right, see you later." I was about to hang up when she called my name again. "I'll try to come home sooner. Don't sleep too early." Her words left me puzzled, but I obliged. I visited a lawyer, getting a copy of a divorce agreement template. I figured whatever Sarah wanted to talk about involved our splitting up. Divorced life could be okay. We'd partnered through life decently enough. If she wanted out, that was fair. At home, filling out those papers felt like drafting a resignation letter. She was a stellar wife, and I, at best, a mediocre husband. Facing the property settlement section, I realized we owned almost nothing jointly. The possessions truly mine were minimal, as if I'd been a guest in a stranger's home for 2 years. When I left, I'd only bring what little I'd originally arrived with. I didn't wait up for Sarah that night. By midnight, I placed the papers on the table and packed up my stuff. I stumbled upon an unsent wedding invitation while cleaning up. I remembered Sarah meticulously writing many and insisting none were missing when I thought otherwise. This one was for Mark. Its bent corner and a small water stain, perhaps from a single tear, weren't shocking. After packing, I turned out the lights and closed my eyes. The next morning, I woke up with Sarah lying next to me. She was awake. She playfully tugged at my hair as usual. The faint smell of alcohol hinted at her hangover from the night before. I apologized. I shook my head and said it was nothing, then got up to make her some porridge. When I came out of the kitchen, Sarah had already left. The divorce papers on the coffee table had disappeared too. My luggage was piled in the corner, making me look like a childish kid trying to run away. I couldn't be bothered to guess what Sarah wanted to say last night. I didn't want to figure out what she meant by delaying the divorce. I'd rather believe I was being understanding again. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark. It was a picture of Sarah making him some hangover soup. She said she forgot to tell you she left, so she asked me to let you know she's with me. I typed back a simple, "Okay," feeling indifferent. I doubted that's exactly what Sarah said. She's the type to play her role completely. I got Mark's contact info during a college club recruitment. He and Sarah were 2 years ahead of me. I added his number when I signed up for hiking. Her friends always found me boring compared to Mark. He was more daring and adventurous. I used to be like that too, until my family went through tough times. Losing my dad made me grow up fast. Back in school, I was an outsider watching their love story. I saw her set off fireworks with his name on her birthday. When I heard about Mark's wedding abroad, it was during a hiking event. Sarah collapsed from exhaustion, and I thought she was out of breath. I quickly handed her an oxygen bottle. She thanked me and asked for my name. "David," she repeated slowly. "Okay." Later, when her friends asked why she suddenly pursued me, she just smiled softly, as if it was a whim. For years, they all saw me as someone to pass the time with, never taking me seriously. They'd shamelessly bring up Mark around Sarah. I called my best friend Tom, asking to crash at his place for a few days. On the other end, he was surprised. "What? Did she finally pick a fight with you?" "No," I replied, dragging my suitcase. "We're getting divorced." I heard the door close and looked up, surprised. Sarah raised an eyebrow and sat on the couch, pulling out yesterday's divorce papers from her pocket. "Thought it through?" Her tone was calm, but her eyes pierced into mine. "Sorry, David, I drank too much last night. If this is about that, I promise it won't happen again. We can think about it some more." But I could smell a different perfume on her, one she hadn't worn since breaking up with Mark. Did she really only go drinking? Why couldn't she tell me who it was with? "No need." I shook my head, handing her the pen. "Sign it." She frowned and flipped through the papers, pointing at the property division section. "Just this? I have a lot of assets. In court, you'd be awarded some." I hadn't seen her take this long to read a document in a while, scrutinizing every detail. "No need. That money's all yours. I don't want it." She chuckled, emotions unreadable. "All right." She signed her name quickly, but lingered over the signature line, making me wonder if she'd change her mind. I picked up my suitcase and left. Later that night, she texted me, "Should I mail you the divorce certificate or will you pick it up?" I thought for a moment. "Give me an address. I'll come get it." Courthouse entrance, then. Okay. I exited the chat and signed up for a hiking trip with Tom and his girlfriend. The departure was set for the day I'd pick up the divorce papers. Boys stay boys, right? I'm not young anymore, but finding a bit of that youthful feeling isn't bad. I'm not that old anyway. When I went to see Sarah, she was in her car looking at her phone. I tapped on her window. She lowered it, and I saw she was canceling a flight. Booked wrong? The anniversary trip tickets from before. Didn't get a chance to tell you. I realized what she wanted to talk about that night. It was our anniversary, too. At a loss for words, I awkwardly asked for the divorce papers. David, I have them here for you, she said. That's when I noticed Mark in the car. He smiled, offering his hand. Sarah looked away, saying nothing. I took the red booklet, thanked her calmly. My phone rang. It was Tom. David, we're boarding soon. Get here fast. After hanging up, their car was long gone. I couldn't figure her out. She wanted me to know the divorce wasn't her idea. Still, she let Mark flaunt in front of me. I rushed to the airport, deleting her and her friend's contacts along the way. Guessing her thoughts was exhausting. At the airport, meeting up with the group, Tom pulled me aside excitedly. He pointed through the crowd. I spotted Mark and Sarah. Mark held Sarah's arm, saying goodbye. Sarah seemed to enjoy it, hugging his shoulder. The world's too small when you bump into them, even on a hiking trip. I tried to hide within the crowd and met Sarah's gaze. She made her way towards me but couldn't get through the dense crowd. She pulled out her phone, typing into the chat. What's up with the sudden interest in hiking again? She sent it, but it only got a cold red exclamation mark. Her usually cold smile, like a mask for so many years, was now incredibly stiff. Mark didn't make it to the top, maybe because he didn't train much while abroad. By halfway up, he was exhausted. He wasn't far from me, so I brought him back to camp, gave him oxygen, and fed him glucose. Mark was surprised to see me when he opened his eyes. After the shock wore off, he grabbed my arm and said, "Thanks." Sarah probably got wind of it. She rushed over in the middle of the night to take him away. Seeing me there, she looked a bit dazed. She cleared her throat and told me, "Thanks." I couldn't help but laugh. These two were quite a match. Even their reactions were the same. After helping Mark out of the camp, she somehow returned. "David, do you have anyone coming to pick you up?" That sounded awkward. She assumed I couldn't make it to the top either, like Mark, and stayed behind to take care of him. I paused from putting on my gear and laughed. If I needed someone to pick me up, why would I be gearing up for another climb? During those years of marriage with her, I never stopped working out 3 times a week, rain or shine. She never cared about those aspects of my life. I caught a glimpse of Mark in the passenger seat, staring dazedly at Sarah. "Better get going, Sarah. Don't keep him waiting too long." After I got back, Tom mentioned celebrating my freedom. "A man's either promoted or divorced when he's doing well," he joked, dragging me to the local amusement park. At the park entrance, I spotted 2 familiar faces. Mark looked excited. It fit. This place had thrilling roller coasters he'd love. I tugged on Tom's sleeve, awkwardly looking away. The next moment, my path was blocked. "I just happened to be here too. Want to join us?" Mark stood silently, looking at his empty hand. I glanced at Tom, a slight smile. "No thanks, Sarah. I've got a friend here." She sighed, almost inaudibly, eyes fixed on me. "All right, if your bag gets too heavy, let me know. I'll have my assistant help." Then she remembered I'd deleted her contact and added, "My number hasn't changed." I noticed the bag on her shoulder, clearly Mark's. Tom teased, "She's quite nice, very polite. Just like when we were together." Our day at the park was oddly shadowed by Sarah and Mark trailing us. When night fell, Tom wanted to ride the Ferris wheel. His heart couldn't handle the high-thrill rides. I nodded and joined the line, Once again, Sarah and Mark queued up right behind us. I felt awkward, filling the silence with idle chatter with Tom. As we boarded, a staff member stopped Sarah. "Sorry, ma'am. We're full this time." Through the glass, I saw something fade in her eyes. She walked out of line, and Mark clutched her sleeve, wanting to ride. She sat on a nearby bench. "No, I'm afraid of heights." In truth, she braved it back then because of Mark's love for extreme sports. She took him on hot air balloons and mountain climbs. She watched the Ferris wheel's reflection on the river, lost in thought. She wasn't young anymore, realizing she had lost that old courage. Mark noticed Sarah's downcast demeanor and gently patted her shoulder. He had never seen her look so fragile, like someone completely giving in to fate. When I got off the Ferris wheel, she got up and reached for Mark's hand. "Let's watch the fireworks." But looking back, the person she wanted beside her had already disappeared into the crowd. She couldn't catch up. Later, Tom and I moved to another city for work. I became a professional photographer. Most of the updates about Sarah and Mark came from the news. He was a reporter. One day, he broadcasted a press conference to me. It was a shareholder unveiling for M Group. Under the spotlight, Mark, in a designer suit, stepped up to speak. He joined the M Group's board. Sarah had given him half of her shares. Grabbing the mic, he smiled and said, "I want to especially thank someone." His eyes shifted to the audience. The reporters buzzed, capturing the moment. I knew he meant Sarah. The camera panned to her, looking at the sparkling Mark on stage, as if reliving her vibrant youth. "Mark, rumor has it you're getting engaged soon?" A bit shy, he lowered his head, showing off a ring. "Yes, you all should come." The video cut off there. Tom patted my shoulder. "What do you think?" I silently turned off the screen. "They're a good match." "And that's it?" Tom asked. I nodded. "Yeah, that's it. We weren't compatible. Staying together just drained us both. Holding on to something not mine, no matter how tightly, was like grasping water flowing past my fingers. So in the end, it's better to never cross that river. Just skim across the shore, like a breeze. That's enough." But did you know Mark's engagement party is today, and his fiancée isn't Sarah? She didn't even attend. Mark said she had to leave for a business trip and couldn't make it back. I was leaning back on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. For some reason, my mind felt a bit chaotic. "Let's go hiking," I said. At the airport, I spotted a figure surrounded by bodyguards from afar. She was hurrying towards the exit. What could be happening in this small city that would make the CEO of M Group skip her first love's engagement party? Tom tugged on my sleeve, bringing me back to reality, and we headed towards the boarding gate. The plane took off with the turbulence. We left Sarah and that small town behind. During that hike, I captured an incredible sea of clouds at sunrise. I also took wedding photos for Tom and his girlfriend. We had a guide named Chloe. That photo set unexpectedly won an award, and I especially thanked her on stage. On the climb, I almost fell into a crevasse. She held on to me tightly, pulling me out. Some nosy reporters dug into my past with Sarah. They asked if I had anything to say to her. I held the mic, smiled, and shook my head gently. "We're no longer involved," I said. "I hope everyone focuses on my present." I invited Chloe, Tom, and the others to the award ceremony. After coming off stage, I sat down with them to chat. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a figure standing in the back row. It was Sarah, wearing a royal blue scarf I had given her as an anniversary gift. She looked at me for a long moment, and then smiled tenderly, though it seemed self-deprecating. Tom suddenly shifted the conversation. "Speaking of, we're planning to get married. David, Do you have any plans to marry? Sarah, who was walking toward us, froze in place as soon as he finished speaking. I signaled them to keep quiet, and quickly led them out of the banquet hall. Just as we left, we bumped into Ryan. He was another award recipient that night. Sarah probably came to support her brother. It was awkward making eye contact, so I gave him a friendly nod. He seemed unsure of how to react, and stood in silence for a while. Then he found an awkward topic. David, was that the girlfriend you thanked on stage? He asked, blinking. I think I heard you talking about marriage. I shook my head, about to explain. She's not my girlfriend. But then his name was called from the backstage. He gave me a knowing look, straightened his suit, and left, leaving Sarah and me awkwardly facing each other in the hallway. Trying to be polite, I greeted her. She leaned against the wall, eyes downcast, looking somewhat pitiful. David, she said, turning her head. Is Chloe good to you? I was taken aback, realizing she had misunderstood. Feeling a tightness in my chest, I inexplicably answered. She's all right. Sarah stubbed out her cigarette. Are you getting married? I shook my head. No, she's not my girlfriend, Sarah. She seemed to think I was lying, giving a bitter smile and nodding lightly. All right. I knew she didn't want to hear any more explanations. We parted ways after a simple farewell. I had to prepare for my next climb, while she joined her brother's award presentation on stage. Afterward, with the prize money, I started a mountaineering club. Somehow, Sarah heard about this and signed up. Since then, whenever I went hiking, if she found out, she'd join. Each time, Chloe led us up first, and when I looked back down, I'd always see her at mid-mountain, gazing up at me. Everyone, including her, didn't say much. Our interactions were mostly nonverbal. Now she seemed out of place in my circle. Many noticed her being different, and subtly asked me about us. I gathered them and explained everything, leaving out the conversation in the hallway outside the banquet hall. I was baffled why I hadn't asked that day. Why didn't you marry Mark? I seemed to know the answer, but like when others asked if she'd visit the old school building, I feared I'd dwell on it if I pondered. I was afraid that forever in a wavering stance, I'd start reminiscing. Tom and his girlfriend were getting married. Getting this news, I grabbed my camera along with some props and accompanied them to the registrar's office. With the embossed marriage certificate, I wished them a happy ever after. Tom went to change, and I held the red certificate outside. The path was suddenly blocked. It was snowing, and some had settled on her shoulders. How long had she been waiting outside, and how did she know I was here? Was Sarah at the registrar to get married too? Without allowing any refusal, she took the marriage certificates from me, touched their covers, and handed them back. David, she said, her voice hoarse, didn't you say she's not your girlfriend? She chuckled softly. Why lie to me? Bowing her head, I watched her eyes go from dry to red. She reached out as if to hug me. I stood stiffly. She quickly regained her composure and slipped her hands into her pockets. What makes her better than me that you'd want to marry her? For the first time since I've known Sarah, she seemed undone before me. Where is she? Her earlier fierceness wilted. Taking a deep breath to steady a trembling voice, she asked. Seeing my silence, she laughed sardonically. Why isn't she with you? You don't really love each other, do you? Did her family pressure you? Her barrage of questions left me stunned. I only noticed her face growing more distressed, seeming both expectant of an explanation and desperate for a reason to let go. Too tired to speak, I only shook my head. Turning to head back to the hall, I heard her voice from behind. David, she called, congratulations on your wedding. That night, I got a call from an unknown number through the line. I could hear a noisy background. I struggled to recognize the voice on the other side, but I just couldn't figure it out. So awkwardly, I asked, Sorry, who is this? Suddenly, it got quiet. "This is the bartender," came the reply. "There's a woman here who came alone to drink. Now she's drunk and won't wake up. Her emergency contact is you, so I'm calling. Can you come pick her up?" I immediately guessed it was Sarah. Just as I was about to refuse, there was some static. "David." Sarah had taken the phone. "Do you really love that person?" She sounded like she'd smoked a lot and was pretty drunk because her words were all slurred. "David, I miss you so much." I almost laughed out loud. I never imagined cheesy lines like that coming from Sarah. Couldn't have ever pictured it before. "Why did you divorce me back then?" I found it funny all of a sudden. It was her who secretly couldn't get over Mark when we were married, and now she's asking me why we divorced. Really makes you wonder if she's losing it because Mark didn't marry her. "Sarah, if you're upset, go see a counselor, 'cause I can't help you with that. And by the way, you should change your emergency contact. We're divorced." "David, did we divorce because of Mark?" That was her only question. An awkward pause followed. "I've moved on from him, David." Her voice wavered, and I couldn't help but question. "You moved on? That's why you ditched our trip plans to pick him up at the airport? Or how you ignored the porridge I made but went out of your way to make him hangover soup? Is that what you call moving on?" I gripped my phone tighter, never feeling so assertive before. "Let's end things peacefully, Sarah." It was like I'd yelled some sense into her, and her voice calmed down. "David, I'm sorry. I never imagined I'd ever hear an apology from Sarah. I shouldn't have kept it from you that I went with friends to pick up Mark so you wouldn't overthink. I know you won't forgive me. I truly messed up. But that day, I didn't go to see Mark. Mark was joining the company board, and a meeting came up last minute. That's why I asked him to tell you. The hangover soup was for myself. He'd already had his. If all that's true, would you give me another shot?" she asked, leaving those words hanging in the air. The next morning, as I headed out, I saw a familiar figure at the end of the hallway. I wasn't surprised someone would come find me, but I didn't expect it to be Ryan. I stood still, watching him walk over. "David, you're not married, are you?" It didn't shock me that Sarah looked into it, so I nodded honestly. She's not someone with a double heart. She explained things last night, too. These days, she's been asking folks to find you without bothering you by getting too close. The day you went to the civil office, she stood in the snow all morning by herself. She wanted me to ask if you'd be willing to start over. I reached out, ruffling his hair like I did by the beach. "No, Ryan," I smiled, feeling at ease. "Actually, there's another reason for our divorce. We're just not right for each other. We can't drop our guard and be our true selves. We're like two air currents crashing and grinding against each other until we're entirely worn out. If it's true she's over Mark, going back to her would just mean getting the same old Sarah. And that's the most pointless thing." He stubbornly met my gaze, his eyes so much like his sister's. Eventually, his shoulders slumped. He pulled out his phone, showing a voice call on the screen. "Sorry." Sarah's voice was especially gravelly from the hangover. "David, I wish you happiness." Sarah had many friends from different walks of life, so it's inevitable to bump into them now and again. After clearly turning Sarah down, whenever asked about her, I'd just shake my head and say I didn't know. Busy preparing for one mountain climbing trip after another, standing on cliffs trying to capture the perfect light and shadow, I began to gain some recognition. When I met those acquaintances again, now they respected me more than before the divorce. Sarah eventually faded out of my life. I thought we'd never cross paths again. I didn't expect we'd meet once more. I hate attending business events, but the sponsors' party was non-negotiable. Among the guests were Sarah's old friends and Mark. Maybe they ran out of things to talk about and turned the topic to me. Before David and Sarah got divorced, we always thought he wasn't as adventurous as Mark. Who knew Mark wouldn't be the party animal he used to be, yet David changed. "So is Sarah still hung up on him?" Someone joked at the table. "I say she just hasn't met the right guy, still pulling young adults' moves at her age. Doesn't care about family at all." I let go of the door handle. Even many years later, when they no longer saw me as boring or difficult, they'd still find reasons to pick on me. In their eyes, neither my past self nor my present self could ever compare to Mark. I was never truly one of them. But I don't need to be anymore. Just as I was about to push the door, a hand grabbed my wrist. I looked up to see Sarah, shadows in her eyes. She looked ready to speak in my defense. I yanked my hand away, swung the door open. "You're quite right, folks, but let me correct something. It's not that I've changed. I've always been this way. I just never had the interest or obligation to amuse you." The laughter on their faces froze. "Since you all have opinions on my personal conduct, I'm sure you also disapprove of my club management and promotional style, right?" I picked up a glass from the table, downed it in one go. "Let's call this a farewell dinner, then. We'll end our partnership when we get back." Someone tried to smooth things over. "Hey, David, partnerships are about mutual benefit. Don't take it so seriously." I ignored them and turned to Sarah. "Oh, by the way, I hope you find someone better soon, Sarah." I walked out of this room with long strides. All that was left was the stunned silence and the sound of Sarah slamming her hand on the table. After returning, I planned the next hike. Unexpectedly, Mark signed up. This time, the destination was the very mountain where Mark had collapsed halfway before. I knew he had something to say, so I put him in my group. At the spot where he had given up last time, he stopped me. "David." He sat on the ground, looking up. His eyes sparkled just like in college. "I think I owe you an apology too." I signaled the rest of the team to move ahead. I'll admit, when I first came back, I hadn't let go of Sarah. I deliberately sent misleading messages, deliberately had Sarah pick me up the day you came for the divorce papers. I know it was gross. From the moment I saw her again, I knew she didn't love me anymore. We're not young anymore. She won't love me like back then, even if I tried to recreate the past. I realized it was pointless. He suddenly looked up with an awkward smile. "I nearly lost my life trying right here, actually. I have to thank you. I know Sarah loves you, not just for your stability when you were her husband, but also for your bravery now. But you shattered her and her friends' illusions about you. You said you didn't fit. Because of you, I realized it doesn't matter how others see you or whether they love you. Thank you." He gripped my hand tightly. We've both let go. He gazed into the distance, watching the sea of clouds. Putting aside the bet with my younger self, this is the real allure of climbing. After the hike, Chloe invited me to dinner. We'd worked together many times already and understood each other well. Seeing her hesitant at the dinner table, I prompted her to speak her mind. She twisted her fingers nervously, avoiding my gaze, her face flushed red. After a long pause, she just asked if I liked anyone. I shook my head. "None at all?" I knew what she wanted to say. "Are you trying to confess, Chloe?" Her face turned even redder. Biting her lip, she said, "I wanted to say it on the mountaintop, but you and Mark were talking, and I got too shy to speak." Before I could respond, she hurriedly stopped me. Suddenly, someone tapped my shoulder. I looked up to see Mark, along with Sarah and Tom. "David, will you consider Chloe?" Tom asked, eyebrow raised and looking amused. Mark waved a hand. "I'm not here to interrupt. Chloe said she was scared and asked me to back her up when we were talking." He glanced at Sarah. "She wanted to come." Her hands casually shoved in her pockets. After I stared for a moment, she squeezed out, "I said I'd wish you happiness." I glanced at the 4 awkward faces around me, finally resting my gaze on Chloe. "Sorry, I have no plans for another relationship." Feeling that was too absolute, I cleared my throat. "At least not right now. There are still so many things I want to explore. No time to divide my attention to another person. When I was young, I thought I'd never want to marry. Like the wind, move through mountains and rivers, always reaching for the horizon. Seeing her disappointed expression, I patted her shoulder. We can still be teammates, even if it's not about love. You're the best climbing guide I've ever known. She stood, her eyes now shining. All right, so which mountain's next? The wind slipped in through the open window, caressing each of our faces. Just like how it gently sweeps over the landscape, lifting the birds. The wind doesn't linger.